Jujutsu Kaisen 0 is awesome. Now, for those who are fans of the anime and the manga, you already know what's going on. You've probably read the manga and you've probably seen the movie and the anime already, and you're probably just here to hear somebody else talk about how great it is, which is perfectly valid. I've done that myself. And if you're someone who has just seen the anime, Jujutsu Kaisen 0 is an in-canon story that takes place during the first year of our favorite second years, Maki, Panda, and Toge. It's their first year at Jujutsu High, and it sheds light on the mysterious second year that we never got to meet in the anime, Okotsu Yuta. And you get to see their story and how they became friends and what happened to Yuta during that first year at Jujutsu High. And it sheds light on that mystery. It gives more context to other characters like the antagonists, like Geto Suguru. We get to learn more about him and see him how he's a little bit differently from the season of the anime versus how he is in this movie. We get to see a bit of Gojo before, Gojo's still pretty much Gojo. You can't really change that dude. He's just always cool, and it adds more context to the characters. And if you are someone who has never read the manga, seen the anime, or seen this movie, and you are completely confused and you clicked on this video to see if you should watch this movie in general, yes, you should, and then you should go and watch the anime. You see, as I just mentioned, Jujutsu Kaisen 0 is canonically the prequel to Jujutsu Kaisen. Initially, the manga Jujutsu Kaisen 0 was a 4-chapter series that predated the release of the mainline story of Jujutsu Kaisen. And this story sets up a lot of elements that take place in Jujutsu Kaisen, but mainly it's more self-contained of its own thing, which I think works perfectly fine. Because one thing that's really great about the characters in the series as a whole is that they're all very depth and they have a lot of lore, and you can interchange who you're following as the protagonist and you won't really feel like nothing is valid. And that is great because it allows this movie to feel very fulfilling. Unlike a lot of anime movies, like if you've seen My Hero Academia and some of the many of the Dragon Ball movies and like the Naruto movies, for the most part, they're all just filler. They don't advance the main plot of the anime at all. They're just there because they're cool. This movie does not have that same issue. Jujutsu Kaisen 0 goes through elements that are still valid, that move the plot forward. Everything that happens in the movie is going to be important or relevant later, or it was important in this movie that developed characters. Like a lot of the characters that you met in the mainline story of Jujutsu Kaisen, you meet them again here from a different character's perspective, and you learn more about them in different lights and see how they bond with different people and everything, and it's really adorable. I truly did love that, and you get to see really cool action in this movie. Like, by God, if you haven't seen the anime, you don't know how great this action is. This anime movie has such incredible action, and the movie gets to add more stuff that you haven't seen in the manga. As I mentioned, the manga is only like 4 chapters. It's like about 200 pages or something like that, maybe a little over 200 pages, and all the action in there was great, but you get to see it more fleshed out. It's in color, it's in motion, there's awesome music behind it, and then we get added in action scenes to pad out the runtime of the movie that still canonically would have happened during this event. So, hands down, this movie is a must-watch if you haven't been initiated into the series of Jujutsu Kaisen at all. This movie's a good starting point, or if you want to watch the anime and then go back and see the movie, or whatever. Either way, it works perfectly fine. If you just started with the mainline series and then go back and watch the movie, you're good. If you started with the movie and then went into the mainline series, you're also good. Either way, I believe it's something that's worth your time. The power system's unique. All of the characters are great. The action's incredible. The animation studio behind it is incredible. Soundtrack is banger. It's just fantastic. Great movie that I highly recommend checking out. It's just an injection of awesome shonen into your bloodstream, and I think you will truly love it. Now, that being said, I do want to go into a bit of spoilers to talk more in depth about the series as a whole. So if you haven't seen the movie or read the manga and you just want to experience it for yourself, I recommend clicking off now and coming back at a later time. But for those of you that have, I'm going to talk more about it and how this will affect season 2 in the future, and talk about things that weren't in the manga versus that were in the movie, etc. So if you don't want spoilers, leave now. We're going to talk about spoilers, and here I go. So a few elements that were missing in the manga that were in the movie were the fights. Like a lot of fights that I mentioned. Like Nanami wasn't in the manga. So his like epic cool moment that you saw in the movie, that didn't happen. That was stuff they added into it for padding, and it works really well within the story. Mei, Toto, and the other students at Kyoto, like Miwa, Mekamaru, and I don't remember everybody, but they weren't in the manga. They were added into the movie, and they had really satisfying moments. I really enjoyed seeing them show up, even for their brief cameos, and it was very interesting to see how each of them interacted in the story. It was really cool. Now, things that weren't in the manga that were added more into this movie because it's predating a second season of Jujutsu Kaisen that's along the way, is there were more flashback sequences between Gojo and Geto that showed them more when they were younger, because the following arc that will be covered in season 2 is going to be a flashback arc that will show you how Gojo and Geto became enemies, and how they became who they are in Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole. And that I think is really interesting. I'm looking forward to see this arc get animated. So a lot of the flashback sequences that you saw with the hanging out there on a beach and everything, that stuff that happens in this arc that will be coming up in the second season, unless they decide to shift things around, which I highly doubt they will do. This anime has been pretty faithful at adapting from page to screen. Like everything that happened in the Jujutsu Kaisen Zero manga happened in this movie. It was just shot for shot, and they just added in a few extra elements to pad out it to make it a feature-length movie, which I think was perfect because they didn't add anything that was just like, why'd you do that? That was unnecessary. You didn't need to do that. It was stuff that was like, that was really cool, or it's stuff that like, hey, yeah, that would have happened, but I didn't see it when I read it, which worked out really well. And I'm very happy we got to learn about Yuta Okotsu, because Yuta Okotsu, at least for me, I like him more than Yuji Itadori. I'll admit that Itadori is, I would say, more entertaining and more accessible to the average person that's watching the anime, like your average shonen manga reader or someone who's watching the anime. Yuji's more entertaining to watch. He has a more vibrant personality that would get you attached to him, but I prefer Yuta because I think he fits more in line with the universe of Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole, because Yuji as a character is developed as someone who, from the beginning, he had superhuman strength and agility and everything, and although he has a very set personality that makes him easy to latch onto, he just felt out of place to me. Meanwhile, Yuta is someone who I could very much see existing 100%. He's someone who got cursed. His childhood friend had died that he was in love with. He didn't want her to die, and he turned her into a curse that latched onto him for 6 years of his life. Tons of people in Jujutsu Kaisen get cursed all the time between Jujutsu sorcerers and regular humans. It happens a lot. People get screwed over a lot for various different reasons, and seeing Yuta be a person who got cursed and had that latched onto him, seeing Rika and all of her power and monstrosity and how he had to live with that and what happened to the people around him, I feel that fit really well with the tone and universe of Jujutsu Kaisen as a whole. Because no offense to Yuji, I think Yuji has the least depressing backstory out of everyone. Everyone in JJK has this depressing backstory. You learn about them and you see everything that happens. Yuji, it's just so far, it's okay, it's not as bad as everyone else. Now, granted, I'm not completely caught up with the manga, so if he has this super tragic backstory in the future, I just haven't gotten there yet. I'm just speaking from what I've read and what I've seen between the anime and the movie. So I like Yuta more and learning about him, especially since he was this character that was shrouded in mystery. You're there's this special grade second year at Jujutsu High, but he never shows up in the anime. He missed the festival, the group battle festival that happened in the anime. So when everyone was fighting, and Toto specifically was looking for him, and Toto is very hard to get along with. So the fact that he was looking for Okotsu made you more interested in what's going on. Who is this dude? He looks cool, but you don't really know much about him. And this movie sheds a lot of light onto his character, and you see him grow as a person and bond with everybody, and you really like him. So I'm very much looking forward to see him. I don't know if he's going to show up in season 2, because where I currently am in the manga, he hasn't shown back up yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing him show up in the anime again, and obviously, as I'm reading the manga, I'm looking forward to seeing him show up in general. So I really loved seeing him, introduced in the series. I loved how his relationship with Rika played into the final battle. I love seeing that fully animated because like that scene where he takes out Geto is like a page. It's like a 1 to 2 page panel where he just, and that's it. Geto is just taken care of right at the end, and that's it. But seeing it fully animated with the music and all the extra animation, you saw him take out Geto, it was incredible. I loved it. The only thing I will say that is probably a gripe is Rika's death is more impactful for me in the manga than it was in the anime. Because in the manga, it's just the way that it's drawn. Because like Rika's corpse in the manga is drawn in a way that the like text bubbles and everything cover the fact that like half of her head got crushed by a car, and like it was just very jarring. Like, you just flip the page and it's like, oh, okay, wow. But in the anime, it's kind of shrouded in more mystery, probably for like the PG rating or PG-13 rating or whatever it is, so they couldn't go like all out and everything, and that's fine. But I wish it would have been like more horrifying to see. Jujutsu Kaisen gets away with a lot of stuff that shows horrifying with the curses and everything, so I think they could have done a little bit more with that. But maybe it's also because she was a child, they couldn't go for how terrifying it was. But either way, that is something I will say. It's probably the only gripe I will say that I think the manga did better than the movie itself, is that one specific thing. Outside of that, everything else was fantastic. This movie is a must-watch. I highly recommend it, and I'm curious to see what you think about the movie. Let me know in the comments down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you can. And if you've seen Jujutsu Kaisen or if you've caught up on the manga, let me know how you enjoy it, and let me know between Yuji and Okotsu, which one you prefer as the protagonist of the series, because I personally, like I said, I like Yuta more than I like Yuji as the main character, but I still really love seeing Yuji's story, and I would love to see it to completion, because I feel like Okotsu's story kind of resolves itself by the end of Jujutsu Kaisen 0. So that'll be the end of this review, and I really hope that you liked it. And as always, folks, I'm the innocent villain, and stay innocent till proven villainous, and I'll catch you in the next one.